Yes, guys, welcome back to the Natural Muscle Podcast with your hosts, Luke Williams and Finn McNamara. So in today's episode, we are going to go through the big question, the big kind of, are you ready to prep? So this kind of episode is centered around that topic as a whole. We'll go through some answer questions from you, from a couple of our listeners, and dive into some questions we'd almost ask yourself if you're questioning it, whether you know or not if you are going to be ready to prep or not. And ultimately, like if you're questioning it now, maybe not the right time. But we'll start this one. We're going back to how we've kind of like started our first three pods, with some valuable kind of like shout outs and mentions. So Finn, do you want to kick things off? We've got a couple of shout outs this week, haven't we?
Yeah, so that's one thing we're going to be doing on the page. You've seen already, it's kind of the format. It's just basically natty UK athletes. At the minute, it's obviously assisted federations because no natural shows have been happening. So if you place him within an assisted show, we'll obviously be giving you a shout out. And then as the UK show starts, obviously the MBW Classic being the first one, we'll be live there at most events, so we'll be putting a lot of live updates on, and then we'll be like highlighting probably the top threes in every category. So yeah, this week PCA Southwest had two natties in it representing. Archie, a young lad, he's only 19, but he did the juniors because PCA don't have teens. He won. Very shredded. As per the post, he's very reminiscent of Josh Bogdani, in my opinion. Very similar frame, very similar physique that Josh had when he was a teen. And obviously, Josh won everything that year. So, Archie, if you're listening, I know he follows the page now because we give him a shout out. Keep going, mate. You look very, very good. Like his legs are particularly impressive. So he's going to want to watch at the MBW because he said that's his next show. And then from the looks of it, the teen category, I know we're gonna preview the show in a couple of weeks. The teen category of that show could be one of the categories of the day. There's three or four I've seen who were doing it who are like fucking exceptional. So it just shows you like the next generation are coming through and they're bringing it. So well done to Archie. And then Leon Campbell, who the 2022 novice UK British champion, and he also won his first show, which was the MBW. He won his class and came very close in the overall. So Leon came third. PCA used to be class 1s, 2, 3, 4. So they've just gone short, medium, tall now. And the short winner, the actual show winner, he won the overall. He will go pro. There's no doubt about it. His brother already is an IFBB pro, which I didn't realise until I put two and two together and saw the last name. I was like, oh, yeah, it is. So for Leon to come third there is exceptional. And I think it's fair to say, and he already said himself, it wasn't a planned show. It just jumped in. And the MBW is his main show. He's going for that. And I think he will more than likely, obviously, be doing the Open because the MBW does have an Open category as a Worlds qualifier. I am more than confident that he will be in that Worlds team, and I think he'll do a lot of damage. Big bubbly physique, strong. But the score. Barbell compounds. That's the main driver of his training. He was a big lad back in 2022, and he looks to have even improved more. So credits to Leon for that. And then last one, the natty legend that is Nigel Barton. I don't know where he placed. I tried to get the information, but I couldn't get it. He did the INBA Holland show, and Holland or the Netherlands are hosting Worlds in June. So I think it was like a little trial event for their own federation to make sure everything's good. He went over and did, by the looks of it, Masters or maybe even Grandmasters men's physique. And he did bodybuilding. He's in his 60s, I believe, isn't he? Nige.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he always brings it. He competes most years, and he's just one of those natty guys in his 50s and 60s who's basically in shape pretty much year round. And what a shape it is like.
Yeah.
He's something that definitely I'd aspire to be in my 60s, looking like that. And he's got a really aesthetic frame. Lovely, like his most musculars really stand out. He's got a good X frame, and he's just like an aesthetic bodybuilder, and he's still holding that mass and that lovely, like he's still got really good skin. He's still got really good like muscle, like the look. Because obviously in some older competitors, it can start looking a little bit worn and fatigued and a bit weathered, but he's still got a fresh looking physique to say he's in his 60s. So credit to Nige. He will be going to Worlds. He's already pre-qualified as an ex. I feel he's won so many titles. So he'll be there and he'll be getting in our Worlds preview pod. So yeah, keep them coming, guys. If you do know anyone, send them to us on the page or send them to our personal profiles on Insta. We don't want to miss anyone, but obviously we don't know absolutely everyone who's competing at these shows. And there are a few people who we might, if we have missed, just send them our way. And also we want to make sure we're doing our due diligence. We don't want to call people and congratulate them. And it turns out they are doing a little bit of assistance. So we do want to try and be correct, but at the same time, we don't want to miss anyone. So if you do know anyone, or you're coaching someone, or you are that person, give us a tag. Or send us your result, and we'll whack you on the page. And ladies, come on, we want to get a few ladies on, because we don't want to get the reputation that we are all heavily just male focused. That's not what we're about. If you listen to episode 1, we're just wanting to do all natural UK bodybuilding athletes and shows. So we don't care who you are. We don't care who your coach is. We don't care what federation you do, male or female, whatever category you are, bikini, men's physique, figure, whatever it is. If you're a natty and you're doing well, we want to show that and give you exposure. So, yeah, that's all that's caught up, Luke. So, if you want to dive in, mate, have you got anything to kick off this topic?
Yeah, I think mine are kind of like centered towards the back end of a prep, really. So, if you want to kick things off with, if you've got anything kind of like at the start, are you ready to prep? Because mine's kind of like in the depths of prep, really.
Yes. So, Cairo sent one, and he won the overall at the MBW, the first MBW Classic, I believe it was, because it was renamed something before then, in 2022. Really good bodybuilder. He sent one in. He sent 2 in, but we might cover this second one at the end because it's a bit more of a jokey one. Should there be a minimum conditioning standard to be allowed actually to kind of prep and get onto stage? So basically, have you got to meet? Do you think there should be a criteria you have to meet in order to kind of do the show? So obviously that does come exposed into the end of it, but it's a bit of a question in terms of essentially, are you ready to prep? Can you do what's required to get you across the line? So in my opinion, it's very difficult to police that, because how would you do that? I don't know. Bodybuilding is open to anyone in the amateur ranks. Like the pro ranks, obviously you have to be a pro, you have to be a pro standard, but largely anyone can do a show. Like we will see at the MBW, I'm sure we'll see some very not ready physiques. I think it's fair to say I'm not being horrible by saying that, because I've seen them at every first time as a novice show for various reasons. Some people have just done it for fun. Some people have self-coached, and like last episode, they've made the mistakes that we discovered in that episode. So realistically, I don't know. I don't think, especially a first-timer show, I think that should just be like, leave it open and see who comes in. But realistically, it'd be so hard to police. I do think there should be some sort of thing that's kind of like, right, are you ready? And there's a bloke at my gym, Grant. He trains with Nath. He's got quite a name within for being quite opinionated. So if you follow Nath Styles YouTube, he was the one who was in the Q&A with him. He's called The Doctor on Instagram. He's very outspoken, but me and him have some great chats in the gym. I doubt he's listening to this just because he doesn't give a fuck about bodybuilding. But he's got an insane physique. Anyway, he's said in his opinion, like he'd love it to be like there's almost like an expo, like a federation at the start of the season hosts some sort of expo where you go and meet the judges. Obviously, you get to know, there might be some stands, but you stand in front of the judges and say, right, here I am, obviously, like starting the prep point, you're not shredded. Have I got enough muscle? Am I good enough to prep? And he thinks they should do that, and they should like say, yeah, you can do it, but you can only do like the beginners category. You ain't got enough muscle, fuck off. Or, yeah, you're good enough, prep. We'll see you in a few months. Like, that won't happen, but that's what his dream is. And I think there's something in that, because there's some people, I put it on my story yesterday, there are some people who I know are prepping this year who just simply have not got any muscle. They just haven't got muscle. Like there's a couple of people I see in person. I'm like, you do not have muscle and you want to do a show this year. Like, what's he going to look like when you're actually stage conditioned? Because obviously they're several pounds away, probably 10, 15, 20 pounds above now because they're doing shows for later of the year. So I do think there should be some sort of standard. I don't know what that looks like, and it would be so hard to police. So I imagine your thoughts are very similar to mine. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I can totally understand where he's kind of coming from trying to enforce something on it, but like the reality is there's no real way to police that or enforce anything to have a kind of like conditioning standard because yeah, there's just no way to actually do that. And yeah, as like myself and you'd probably agree as well, Finn, like as a novice, first time competitor, you're not going to be at that. There is some athletes now, and obviously the standard is getting better, especially from first time competitors, whether even if you're like in as a teen or junior as a first time, like those are bringing, there is a lot more bringing like absolutely nail on condition from the start. But for the vast majority of competitors, they've not got towards that yet, and that's the kind of their way in towards the sport. And it will almost shut a lot of people out if they, let's say, if there was something there like a condition standard and they were to shut out, and they'd be like, "Oh no, you're not quite at that condition yet. You can't compete in our show." It's a bit kind of like a kick in the teeth to their introduction into bodybuilding because they're not. They might be like questioning, thinking, "Oh, maybe it's not for me." And it may not be it's not for you, but you've just not spent enough time yet to grow enough muscle to be able to get in that kind of condition. Ultimately, yes, we don't want to see people like not really. I say this with a pinch of salt, like tarnishing the sport with coming up like as if you've actually not dieted at all. But everyone's start point and their journey is like a different from there. But just because you've dropped, say, 60 pounds or something to get to where you need to be doesn't mean you belong on a bodybuilding stage. Um, if you still carry a lot more body fat than what's required, or you're not even close to the standard, then you should really reassess it. But how to reassess that? It's tough now because obviously bodybuilding is becoming more popular and not like more mainstream, but it's getting more kind of more eyes on the sport, which is great. But then you get people who've only trained for a couple of months, a couple of years, stepping through onto the stage with inadequate muscle to be able to get the required condition to be on a bodybuilding stage. And how would you know you have enough muscle there? You should have gone through a diet before actually getting through onto stage. But yeah, there's no way to actually set a standard with that. It'd be good if there were a way around it, to have some levels of standards with that. But like, especially for like a first time and novice show, it's hard to do so. And I think when coming to certain qualifiers and British finals, you have to meet a certain standard to be at them shows anyway. So as you kind of climb up the ranks, it doesn't really matter too much because you're expected to be in that condition anyway. That's kind of my take home on that, really. So yeah, pretty similar view to you, really, Finn.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think if you distinguish between, because if someone's actually going to climb the ranks and they're trying to win titles, win Britishers, win international shows, potentially compete as a pro, your conditioning standard is going to have to be met. So for those people, I don't think it'd be an issue. And then they'd almost see it as a waste of their time if they're having 6 weeks out to kind of show a judge
Yeah.
on, like, send them a picture, I don't know, and submit it via email and be like, can I do your show? When, they care about this sport now.
Yeah.
I think, like you say, for a first timer who's just coming in, and they might be doing it on a whim, they might be doing it. I've seen people do it for charity. I've seen people do it for comedy. There was a comedian who did. Oh, what's He's got like a bit of a effeminate sounding. Is it Mickey Flanagan? Like he's got frizzy hair.
Is it Mickey?
Comedian.
Yeah, I think it will be Mickey.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he did an NPA show back in like 2016, 2017.
Right.
He just rocked up to an MPA show, and obviously looking like he did. Got tanned by Nicola, went on stage, obviously just had a dad bod and posed, and he did some sort of. He put it on like he was on Channel 4, Channel 5. It wasn't solely about bodybuilding, but it was like a Mickey Flanagan half an hour, and I think I don't know, for some reason. So I've seen comedians do it, I've seen people do it for charity. So I don't want to judge them too harshly, but at the same time, if you're going on a stage, the judges don't know your story. So if you literally look like Luke's just said, Like you've just got out of bed and you're 30 pounds, not over stage weight, you're 30 pounds overweight for health, not like a healthy body weight.
Yeah.
Like the judges don't know that, so they don't know your story, so they're going to judge you, and it could look disrespectful. I don't think necessarily most of these people doing it maliciously. I think it's just they don't know any better. They maybe had a different idea of what competing is like. They've maybe never actually seen competitors and actually what it takes to be one, and the condition element of it. So you don't know the story, but like I say, I understand when people say it can be disrespectful, and it can look that way. But I would say, to be play devil's advocate, I don't think they're doing it on purpose to like take the piss out of the show. Apart from Mickey Flanagan, he clearly was taking the piss. But like I say, in terms of like, it'd be very hard to police. But I do agree, Cairo. Like there should be some sort of standard. But like you say, if it's the standard, I suppose, is met on the day. If you get left at the back of the stage until last call outs, like that's you being told you are not at this standard.
Yeah.
So I suppose the results would show that. Like I say, I don't think. I suppose as well as a federation, you turning away 50 competitors from your show, that's 50 entry fees, and we know money does drive this sport. So realistically, I think a judging panel will be like, we'd rather have 50 entry fees, even if you're not good enough. Like you're going to fund a good athlete to go to Worlds, would rather that. So it's a tough one. It is a tough one.
Yeah, it is a tough one to manage. And I know, like from athletes like that do nail the condition, like obviously Cairo asked this question, and he absolutely nailed the condition. He won the overall as a junior, I believe, the
Yep.
first time in 2022, which was phenomenal. And then obviously we had Josh Campbell then go the step over that and do it as a team. Sorry, Cairo.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then if you obviously you've got into that stage level of that condition, and then you may look around you and there's people kind of soft, but it's like it shouldn't really affect your day. Yes, it may be in some pictures or whatever, but like if you're that good, you'll be in the limelight anyway, and you'll have your chance to get your photos and so on from there and be able to like show off the hard work anyway. So it shouldn't matter in the long run. I know we do see it a lot more in say like masters and stuff. People just get on there for the crack, and it is sometimes it does offer great entertainment. But for the most part, like people are there to watch bodybuilding as competitors, and audience members. You want to see like the best athletes on the day. Unless you've got say like unfortunately you've got friends and family there, and then they may not be in there. They might be in like last call outs or whatever. But most bodybuilding fans want to see the best athletes on there, and they don't want to see someone who's just kind of like just out of shape on there. And one thing to know with this is like bodybuilding is a subjective sport. So if you know someone, if it's kind of like you're doing it and you think you're probably not to where you need to be, and you're kind of looking for a bit of validation with it, I wouldn't like a validation on your physique. I wouldn't step on a bodybuilding stage because it can be pretty brutal in terms of like what you need. Like you need more muscle everywhere. For some people, they may not take that the best way. So yeah, be prepared and be as long as you're ready and you can accept other people's kind of like opinions subjectively on your own physique, then you're ready to do it. But if you're not happy with what others are saying based on your physique, that is a big red flag to not compete. And I'm sure you'd agree with that, wouldn't you, Finn?
Yeah, mate. All you just got to do is look at the PCA Reels comment section. Fucking hell, some of them like go in. So if you don't want people to critique your physique, and if you've got low self-esteem, just double think, because you could end up crying and deleting everything off social media, because you can get absolutely wrecked by some of these people, rightly or wrongly. But like you say, you put yourself out there to be judged. So I think we've gone through that, and another one within this kind of category, Will Razzo, the sausage. He's sent one in. How much would you say is a decent amount to pull off the prep? And obviously, this is a really good one for our topic of the day, because it's again, are you ready? So the whole point of a bodybuilding prep is to preserve the most amount of muscle. How much weight you take off in a prep is directly correlated to how much muscle you can retain. 100%, it's clear. Now, in years gone by, people used to just take off what they needed to, and they didn't really mind. You'd see the 40, 50 pound, 60 pound preps. And some of those end up really, I know Bob Waterhouse was like a £50 prepper, and he'd come in absolutely peeled. But not everyone can do that. Not everyone's Bob, clearly. Because the problem you've got is if you're taking off an absolute massive amount of weight in week one, and let's say you're doing a 26-week prep, your training performance at some point is just going to go down. It just is. And if you're still a little bit soft when that starts to happen, you're going to lose more muscle by the end of it. So obviously, if you start leaner and your performance drops, you're going to be looking better if you're following what I'm saying here. So, yeah, gone are the days of taking these 50, 60s off. Personally, I think the sweet spot, and we're talking to get in like British champion pro level condition. To get into that level of condition, I actually believe no more than 15% total body weight, I would say, to lose in a prep. So if you're a 180-pound competitor, we're talking no more than within 27 pounds, 25 pounds, let's call it, which is quite a lot still. I'd say that's on the higher end. So I'd say anywhere between 10 to 15% body weight total. So whatever your body weight is, take 10% of that and start your prep 10% higher than what you think you're going to be on stage or what you were last time. So for me, last time on stage, I was like 1.6. Let's just say pre-carved up, I was like 1.62, 1.61-ish. I think that was my lowest weight. So I'd probably next prep start at like 180, realistically. So I'm just above 10%. Like if you do that, I guarantee your muscle you'll keep more of it. Your performance will stay better. You will get in better condition because you'll be fresher at a lower body weight in terms of the length of time in a deficit, how quick you has to lose. Because we also know if you're losing like 0.9 of a pound per week for 26 weeks, as opposed to 2.6 pounds a week for 26 weeks, I can promise you one of those is a hell of a lot harder on the physique, and you will be fucking dying if you're losing pounds a week all the way through prep. So I'd say, yeah, Will, I'd say the sweet spot would be about 10 to 15% of your total body weight. It's not a definitive number because if I say, yeah, 20 pounds, well, 20 pounds for a junior bikini girl might be her looking skeletal. Like she might only really have 10 pounds to lose, maybe, because that might be correlating to her body weight. So I'd say between 10 and 15%. And to get you at that figure, that's why the pre-prep diet has kind of come into effect. And I'll let Luke kind of go into what a pre-prep is in a minute. But essentially, in my opinion, every time I've prepped, I've started from a lower point in terms of how much to lose. Like the most I lost, 2018, I lost like 40 pounds. 2022, I lost about 30. And this next one, I'll be looking to lose about no more than 20. So that's where I'm going to go. And I would probably surmise in my next prep after that, it might be more like 15. I know Berto Nunez, I think he's like starting prep like 8 pounds above stage weight or something stupid. But he's trying it because Berto's done everything. Like, what's he got to prove? So, yeah, Luke, I kind of let you get into what we want to see from a start point of a prep in terms of the look and the physique and why pre-preps have become popular.
Yeah, I mean, so like going through into a pre-prep, like, and going over the big topic through of this episode is like, are you ready to prep? Like, ideally, you should have gone through a period of time, an off season, where you were pushing your food up, you're pushing your body weight up to peak strength, peak body weight. So for me, using myself as an individual, because the numbers are pretty easy as well, that's me pushing up to around 200 pounds. Once up at there, I try hold at that kind of 4 to kind of 8 weeks, depends on digestion and so on from there. I would then, my stage weight's 152 last time, and I'll be around the 150s, low 150s to high 160s. We'll see as we come down. But I'm not going to go from 200 pounds to 150 pounds. There's just far too much to lose. It's like 25%. Yeah, it's just a huge number. So what you want is like your pre-prep diet to be from 200 pounds for me to 180, about 12, 13 weeks. I'm someone who loses body fat like quite quickly and weight very easily. So how it will look from one individual to the other will be relative, like completely different. It could be the same for you. And then what I want is like, once you've done the diet phase, then you've kind of got yourself into a better start point. You want to then be reversing food up. So you've got a shorter period of time, but like managing body weight, like increase very, very steadily out of the gate. So you're not getting too much above that weight. So for me, it might be like 180 up to 185. So I'll probably go at like a slightly larger rate of actual loss to go up. So maybe 30 to 35 pounds. But like I said, I will lose quite quickly out of the gates there because I know what my body's like. Because I've worked with a coach for a number of for a while now. I know how my body responds out of a diet. I don't struggle to lose from there. But yeah, I'd probably have, I think about 3 months going from 180 to 185. So a long time to go up just a short amount, but it's almost just holding and solidifying that body weight, almost recovering from that diet, but it won't be much kind of fatigue to take 20 pounds off from once you're at a higher body weight. But getting yourself freshened up, ready to start a long prep. So you're going to be in that for 20 to maybe like 30 weeks, depending on your goals, where they fall, if it's one for like WNBF Worlds or so on at the tail end of the year. Ideally, you want to be like splitting that up into towards 2 phases as well. But that pre-prep should be getting you in the best position possible to grow. Knowing you're not too soft, it may even mean not going as high as 185 because things are starting to go a little bit further away from where you'd ideally want to start from. You may be an individual where you might have to be a little bit lower than that, but that pre-prep is to get you in a good position where you don't have to pull off a lot of weight to get down to being in stage level condition, but also that you've still got a good level of training around that body weight to manage that on the way down. Just basically setting yourself up for the perfect prep. Say perfect with a pinch of salt. We can't nail that, but getting yourself in the best position possible to take that forward. And going back through on that question around, obviously we've gone through the pre-prep here. But what was that question again from Will Razzo here? The amount to take off.
How much weight is like the best amount kind of?
Yeah, every individual is going to be different through on that. Like, yes, using like a percentage, it would be great on there. But you've probably gone through a diet beforehand. You can see what your body responded and so on from there. For me, like I say, it will be probably like 30 to 35 pounds at the highest, really. Probably 30 to be honest, like 25 to 35 really. And I won't go any further than that. I know before I can do that, and I've done it in 12 weeks. I wouldn't advise doing that in 12 weeks because you're going to sacrifice muscle tissue to do so. Yes, you can get it off in that time, but it's not just a fat loss contest and getting fat off as quick as possible. It's about trying to retain muscle mass as much as you can. So having food being at a good spot where you can train, you can still take progressions for the most part of your training. You can hold on to that tissue and also reduce your body fat levels. That is kind of like the ideal sweet spot. And you'll know this more as you come down. No one's going to know it. Like for the first time, you're not going to know your stage weight, but you'll have a great idea from that pre-prep how much you need to take off from there. You could be an individual that is very, very lean from the front. We're seeing it now, like Dante, for instance, looks like he's a couple of weeks out from the front. But certain body parts, like from the rear, won't be there. And you'll know this as things go down. So yeah, I think like 10 to 15% can be like a good benchmark, but always, especially as a first time competitor, expect there is more to come off than you think. So like leaning towards having a 10 to 15% threshold. And then if there is a little bit more to come off, it's not as detrimental as having to take 50, 60 pounds off basically.
Yeah, and I think you've made a really good point there, and one we slightly covered last week is, as a first timer, more than likely you will take off more than the average person because you don't know how light you actually might be as a first time. You have an idea. You think, well, when I went on holiday that time and I had 6-pack, I was like 160 pounds. Yeah, if he's having a 6-pack and then he's been shredded on stage, so you might be more like 145, and it might surprise you. So yeah, I'd say a first timer, if you've lost more than 30 pounds as a first time, I don't think you've done it wrong. It's just because you don't know where you're gonna land with condition and your weight. So ideally, like I think I agree with you. If I saw anyone losing more than 30 in a prep, I'd say you could have probably put yourself in a better start position, unless you were just someone who your start position looks like your whole body fat really well, like you've got a shit ton like subsurface like intra like organ fat, like, and you got rid of all that. I don't know. or like basically like your 30 pounds above stage looks fucking mint and looks pretty lean. And on the most part, I'd say probably 30 for blokes, and any more than 20 for women is probably pushing things maybe a bit. But like I say, it's conducive to your percentage body weight. So that's what I'd say. But just to kind of cover to go into the topic of are you ready? Like the whole point of a pre-prep is almost like a trial run. So can how's your training in the deficit? How responsive are you? How fresh are you? What's your sleep like? What's your relationship with food like? How high is your food? Like, now don't get me wrong. If you're starting a prep on 200, like, yeah, your food's going to get low in prep, and that's just is what it is. And I'm not saying don't start a prep unless you're prepping on 5,000 like Steve McDonald. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But again, the idea of being ready is everything should be in a row. You should have like an amazing sleep and recovery modality. That's number one. Number one thing. If your sleep's all over the place and your recovery and your like life just routine is fucking wank, do not prep. Do not prep. You're not there. Like, that is so important in a prep. You have to be ticking those boxes on week one. If you're ticking that box a week out, but you've kind of built the routine through prep, sometimes that can be okay, but you want that from day one. It's just going to make the prep better. Number two is, how's your training? Are you actually progressing? Are you enjoying training? More importantly, like, is your training productive? Like, if you've just been like training for a couple of years and you're not really progressing that much, it's not going anywhere, you're not really seeing a lot of again, do not prep. Your training is not in a good position at all to prep. Similar like what we talked about last week. Are you getting niggles all the time? You like got to carry an injury. Don't prep. So all these boxes you want to tick them. Am I ready to prep? Your recovery and your sleep being one, your training being one, your relationship with food being massive. If you're starting a prep hungry before you've even started your prep, or more importantly, you've got massive food focus still, like if every weekend for your off plan, you're planning that off plan all week, you're thinking about that Chinese, you're thinking about that Five Guys, you're thinking about that sushi, and all you can think about, you're scrolling through Just Eat every single day. You've got a really bad relationship with off plan food. Do not prep. That is only going to ruin it, and you are more than likely going to have a horrendous binging episode or months of it post show. So your relationship with food is a massive one. You have to be. I know I'm ready to start a prep and a diet if I'm just like, I literally do not care about eating. I could like have 2 days of not eating and I would not care at all. I want my appetite to be pretty poo before I start like a pre-prep. And obviously through pre-prep, your appetite comes back and you start building that and all that kind of thing. So these are the things, but the main one for me, and I'm sure Luke will agree, your life routine. What's your life like? If you're starting a prep and you're expecting a child halfway through prep, I wouldn't do that. If you're, I don't know, right, I'm going to try and sell my house halfway through prep, I wouldn't be prepping doing that. Now, don't get me wrong, I've seen people do all these and be successful. But I'm just saying, if you want a really, really good prep where you can look back on show day and be like, I did not miss anything, I did it, I wouldn't change anything of that prep, then these are the things you've got to look at. So how's your life? And obviously things can happen. Obviously, if a loved one gets an illness halfway through prep and you have to cancel prep, of course that can happen. We can't account for that. But like, where's your life at? Where's your routine at? Where's your relationship at? How's your work? Now, a lot of coaches try and prep to save their business. Like, they're not earning any money. They've got no clients. They don't know how to build a business. And they see other people who are like, oh, well, he prepped and he got 20 clients. Yeah, but you don't know that person. You don't know his story. You don't know why those 20 clients went to him. It might not necessarily be because he prepped. So I see a lot of new coaches, particularly in PTs, who will prep to kind of save or build a business. And it's categorically the wrong thing. Because when you're a week out and you're fucked, do you want to be thinking about outreach? Do you want to be thinking about taking 5 new clients on 5 days before your show? Do you want to be thinking about constantly marketing your next phases of marketing, like planning your content all the time? You're not. You're just going to be like thinking about the next meal and surviving the day. So all of these things, I'd say, absolutely should be in a row, ready to rock and roll. If you can tick all those boxes outside of something like an act of God or something happening that's not planned, you need to have all these things. It's not just, have I got a bit of muscle? What's your life like? Like my mate at work, that he was going to prep this year. He like got his head around it. And then, you know, he's absolutely happy about it, of course. But at Christmas, he found out he was expecting with his missus, and it wasn't a planned baby. But he's buzzing. He can't wait to be a dad. And it would be I think she's due sometime in the summer. So obviously he'd be right in the middle of prep. So he said, okay, yeah, no prep this year, because I don't want to be 6 weeks out and have a 2-day-old baby screaming. Like, that's fair. And you want to be present for your missus. More importantly, she's going to need some help. So like I say, all these things need to come into it. So realistically, you know yourself, Luke, like, to start a prep, you want everything to be properly in a row. And you're like, yeah, I'm in such a good routine. Everything is good. I can now bring in this highly stressful environment into that.
Yeah, it should be a pretty simple transition, really. Like everything, the big difference from going from your kind of like your off season and your reverse out of your pre-prep into prep, you should almost be like, if you're working with a coach, like you should be asking them like, oh, when we started prep, when we're like we start prep, yeah, you should almost be like ready to that. But nothing much is going to really change if you've got like your routine nailed, your sleep nailed. It'll just be a simple case of reduction from food, and if you're having a little bit more, say, palatable foods, going towards more whole foods. So the duration of the diet is just much easier as a whole, rather than kind of keeping things in just because food focus is high. That you shouldn't be in that place. Should be like, okay, we might as well. We're in a good spot now. Body weight's held well. Like training's at a good spot. Like let's just start prep. That's the point you should be at when you are like ready to prep and think like, okay, let's do it. And from the start, you shouldn't really notice any changes. Like it should just be a case of eating less food and like still probably progressing training. To be honest, like from that actual drop down from extra food volume, you might feel just better in training performance from the start anyway, because you've got just less kind of total food volume in the stomach, feel a bit fitter from sessions. And yeah, things should feel pretty normal from the start anyway. And that's the spot you want to be. Like, are you able to just transition into it and just eat a little bit less? Expenditure might be a little bit, probably be the same, to be honest, because you should have had that nailed from the start. So yeah, we'll wrap things off through on that one anyway, because I know we've covered that in quite a bit of depth, really. One question I've got, which will actually like kind of brush past it through on here, and it's one we can't really like cover too much anyway. Well, I mean, we can cover, but there's no way to kind of like tackle it really. You've just got to kind of expect it. And I've got a question from Heather here, Heather Elizabeth. Ways to tackle bad sleep when on prep. And like, first things first, like you've got to get to a point. Yes, you want to get your routine and everything nailed and your sleep being on top of that and allowing for, say, 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night from the start of that. But there is going to be a point where sleep is going to suffer. And it may even, at first, it may be a case of having to wake up because you're at them low levels of body fat and you're having to just go to the toilet. It may just be once at first. It may then get to multiple times. But when getting into a contest prep, you've got to be aware, and you should be made aware, if your coach has been through this process before, that these things are going to happen. Like, yes, we can manage things by obviously like reducing caffeine intake and so on with there, especially towards the latter end of the day, especially if you're sensitive towards that. But you have to accept that these things are going to suffer slightly in order to get in contest shape. From the first half of a contest prep, you should generally manage things very well, but you've just got to kind of like think, all right, yeah, there's certain things that are just out of my hands to control. You could have like the best kind of like cortisol management in terms of obviously like magnesium and stuff before bed, like sleep supplements. But majority of the times, like you're going to have nights where sleep is bad. That's why it's a case of having a solid routine and like managing food and everything around that, so you can stay on top of your energy levels, not just for training as well from a contest prep, but everything else around that, for work, for family life, for your relationships with obviously like friends and your partner and others. That has to be taken into consideration. But like you should, yeah, alert them and let them know prior to starting a contest prep that sleep is probably going to suffer. You may be going to bed earlier because you're going to be up early, and that'll probably start to get earlier and earlier and earlier as the prep kind of as you go through the prep. But yeah, having a solid routine, and then if there's things to do, like if you're up, just do the tasks earlier because energy levels are probably going to get tougher towards the latter end in the day. But yeah, in terms of actually managing and improving sleep on a prep, how would you say you've tackled things like things you've done to handle that the best you can, really, Finn?
Yeah, so like you said, if you get in stage condition, female or male, you are going to lose sleep. That is just a fact of life. A lower body fat percentage person needs less sleep for various reasons. We don't always know exactly why. One of them is because your body is waking you up to go and forage food because it's like, we're starving, we are at critical levels of body fat, please go up and eat. Another is you don't necessarily need more sleep to recover. So you know, because there's less of you, I suppose. So to refresh and re-energize, that all happens. Your hormones massively being out of whack. Obviously, cortisol spikes in the morning, and that's what sort of wakes you up. Highly stressful preps, which all preps are if you get in condition. Obviously, that's going to be high cortisol. So that's one of the big reasons as well. So you're just going to have to accept that it's going to happen. Now, if it gets to a point of like ridiculousness, like where you're waking up at like midnight, 1 o'clock, and you only went to bed at like 10, like again, that's something that would have to be like you and your coach sit down and be like, this is not sustainable, because we're going to start getting to points of like health issues there, like serious health issues can start creeping in. Because I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's only a certain amount of days of really like barely or little sleep is needed for like serious health issues to come in. Obviously, in the military, we'd do exercises or even on operations where you'd have like couple of hours of sleep. But I remember doing one, and by like the fifth day, I was hallucinating, like legit hallucinating. And because we were having like maybe a couple of hours sleep a day, like at the most, because we were being like beasts. That was part of the exercise. And like I was hallucinating. I was seeing things that weren't there. I was falling asleep not knowing I was asleep. So it was weird. So like we'd be doing something like we'd be like cleaning your rifle, let's just say, in your little shell scrape in the forest. And I was like asleep, but in my dream, I was cleaning my rifle. So I thought I was fully consciously, and then I'd like someone attack me, and I was like, oh, and everything's like all over me. Like that's how bad it can be. So obviously that's extreme, but if it's that level, I'd certainly speak to your coach because that can get serious quite quickly. So I'll just ramp through a quick fire line. So water, getting up to piss, like Luke said, is one that gets a lot of people. So I would front load your water. So if you've got a water target for the day, get most of it in earlier. It's quite healthy anyway. So like I start the day with like 750 to a mil to a litre water straight in. Yeah. Off-season or prep, and it's really good for cognitive function, energy levels. It's good just for rehydrating that lost hydration through sleep. So if you're behind on your water and you twat a load of water in at like 8 p.m, you're going to get up for a piss. I'm really sorry to say, because obviously water is held with carbohydrates in the cell. If you're not eating that many carbs, it's going to just be excess and you're going to excrete it out. So you're going to piss a lot. So don't drink loads of water last thing at night. Don't go to bed hungry. Now, I know this is easier said than done, but I would always try my best on a prep, even if food's low. And obviously, if you're in a real dig phase, like for a few days where like carbs are little to none, you can't help it. But I would always have a carb, small, even if it's small, a carb serving in my last meal pre-bed, because that just puts me to bed. So I held on to oats throughout prep in 2022, even though at the end it was like, I think it was like maybe 40, 50 grams of oats in my last meal. I would rather have less carbs in the day and knowing I had a bit of oats at night, and that would help me go to bed. So don't go to bed on like 100 grams of Greek yogurt and you haven't eaten for 5 hours before then, because you are going to wake up 100%. So food and water is a massive thing. And then your routine, like stop sitting up at night, stressing about show day, stressing about how far you're out, stressing about am I looking right? Just go, like, put those things out your mind. Don't start thinking of all these things last thing at night. Like Luke just said, don't put all your tasks in the day late at night. Get them all done first thing. If you're getting up early, be productive. Get some shit out of the way, like some life admin or some whatevers. So then you can actually like wind down at night. All these things will come into it. I know a big thing is like, and AJ famously was doing it his last prep where he was going to bed at like, I remember him saying, "Oh, I was going to bed in the summer, and he could hear little kids on his estate playing outside, and he was like fully in bed asleep, and it's like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening." But he could do that because he was waking up at like 3 a.m. wide awake. So he was like, right, I still want my 7 hours. I'm just gonna have to go to sleep early. Now, AJ can do that. Some people might not be able to do that because they might be working, they've got kids, they might be training then. So a massive one there is if you can do it, but again, sometimes that can be a self-fulfilling prophecy because if you go to bed earlier and earlier, you're going to wake earlier and earlier. And then the last one is caffeine. All of us on prep become caffeine reliant. And if you do that, you're going to fucking destroy your sleep. So if you're just like can of Monster and black coffee like non-stop all day, and you've had like 8 coffees, 3 Monsters throughout the day, first of all, your gut's going to be fucking wrecked. You're probably going to start looking shit. Like you'll just look watery. But more importantly, you're probably like 2,000 mil of caffeine in, and you're trying to go to sleep on that. And as it's proven, like your caffeine tolerance is also related to your body weight and your like level of like composition. So like really really lean individuals who are obviously going to be lighter and way more caffeine sensitive, way more caffeine. I remember doing I trained one Saturday morning off just one meal, and I had my normal pre-workout, which was just a full scoop. I only have half a scoop now, even no matter what time I train, because actually those studies came out recently that said even pre-workout at like 10 a.m. in the morning can still ruin your sleep later, if you slept 12 hours later. Anyway, and I had it, and I just went like, and I know it's more like the beta alanine and things. I just went bright red head to toe, and I was like wired because I was like a week out. It was like 2 weeks before my first show, so I was like properly lean, properly depleted, and I just had that. And within like 5 minutes, I felt like fucking hell, that is just kicked right in. So I had to check that I'd not had and I had the same amount, I'd had the same pre-workout, and it just fucking kicked in. So if this is you and you're training at like 4 p.m., it's going to have more of a pronounced effect. So that's the main thing, the caffeine one. We've become so reliant on it to get us through the day, but you're not thinking that's going to have there's going to be a cost to that. When you try and sleep tonight, that caffeine's going to still be in your system. You're going to have shit sleep, and you're just going to get stuck in this rut where you're going to constantly try and out-caffeinate bad sleep, and it does not work. I will tell you that now. You can't. It's like you can't, what's it? You can't out train like a bad program. You can't, out diet a bad meal plan. Like you can't over caffeinate to catch up bad sleep because you'll just be round and round and round and round, and it just won't go anywhere.
Yeah, like you're going to get to a point where energy levels are going to be low, and like, yes, you may get like an itchy face from the beta alanine or something, but is it going to provide you more energy from the session? Probably not at some point. A phrase I like to use is like there's only a certain amount of times you can flip the batteries over before they eventually just run out. Like you're going to be running off empty, and you've got to kind of just accept that to some point. And one thing I'd say from a lot of people that get caught up on, especially in the depths of a contest prep, is they will lean towards like cans of like, and it's something I've done as well, like your Pepsi Max, like one calorie Pepsi Max, that is still caffeinated as well. So yeah, you can smash 3 cans of that, but it's the equivalent to what's probably over a kind of Monster. So just take note of what you're kind of like taking throughout the day, because it does play an effect of in terms of your sleep overall when it comes to it. So that pretty much kind of wraps that off from a sleep standpoint. Because just accept that it is going to be worse than it is when you've got an abundance of energy, abundance of calories coming in. But it is only for a sustained period of time, and it should be managed to a certain degree. You should be hallucinating. I definitely didn't hallucinate anyway in a contest prep, so don't have to worry about that. But manage that the best you can. But ultimately, like 6 to 8 weeks, your sleep's going to be shit. So just deal with it, basically. Any other questions from your end, Finn?
Yeah, so I got one from Dan Norris. He's called Norris Nutrition on Instagram. He competed several years ago. He hasn't competed since. He's got a really good physique. He's just been, doing life. He's a nutritionist for, like elite powerlifters, elite athletes. So he knows his shit when it comes to that. He's a good person to follow in that respect. But this kind of came into the previous question before the sleep one. Basically, stop doing back-to-back seasons when they haven't got enough tissue to start with. And this is the whole idea behind what we were just saying. Are you ready? Are you ready to prep? So if you've just done 2023 season and you're supposed to be starting prep now, and you're feeling still a bit fatigued, still basically like you haven't recovered from last prep, you should not be prepping. No way on earth. Like a prep back-to-back seasons as a natural, I don't recommend anyway. But some people like to do them. Some people have been successful doing them. But you simply shouldn't be doing it if you don't feel recovered. And doing these back-to-back, like he said in his question, and if you haven't got enough muscle, you aren't going to grow that muscle between finishing, say, in October and starting again in March, because you won't be doing a pre-prep diet realistically. And also it depends on how you handle your post-show. If you just got 30 pounds of fat straight on the frame, you're actually going to make your next prep worse, because not much new muscle went on that 30 pounds, but to take that 30 pounds off, muscle is going to have to go, because we don't just lose body fat when we lose 30 pounds. You lose everything. You lose bone mass. It's been proven. Like, your body doesn't decide, right, yeah, all that 30 pounds is fat's going. We're going to keep all our muscle. We're going to keep all our, lean body mass. Like that. That's not how weight loss has ever worked. So you have to accept some is going to come off. So if you just put a load of fat straight back on and that fat's going to come back off, that's going to take some muscle with it. So actually the look's going to be worse season to season. And like I say, there is no natty rebound. I'm going to say that again. You cannot rebound as a natural. Rebounds for assisted athletes who go high drug, high food for a short amount of time post their show when they're exceptionally lean. They will chuck on 20 to 30 pounds of body weight in a very short amount of time. They will have high doses of growth. They'll have high doses of X and Y because they can actually grow muscle. We can't. There is no natty rebound. So if you bang 10 pounds on post show, none of that's muscle. I'll actually say I don't think any of that will be muscle. None of that will be muscle. It will just be weight, fat, and a bit of just you basically coming back. Like, you probably won't be growing new muscle, in my opinion, naturally, post-show, if you got in show condition, until minimum 12, 16 weeks post-show. That's what I believe. Now, some people may disagree with me. I just don't see how physiologically you're ready to put new muscle on, but also the systems that take place at a cellular level are ready to actually work. Everything's down-regulated. You've got no testosterone. Your training's in the fucking bin. So why would new muscle come? You're not in an environment to put that in. Like, it just isn't. Your sleep's probably going to take a little while to come back round. You're still going to be highly stressed. Like, you aren't growing muscle, and this is the thing. Like, so if you go 12 weeks from, say you finished mid-October, let's go 3 months forward from there to make it easier. So mid-November, that's mid-January. So realistically, you're only going to get 8 weeks of quote-unquote growing before you'd probably start the next prep. How much muscle are you growing in that time? Like, and I was saying before, one of my PT clients yesterday was asking about like a bulking phase, and like, well, how long would that be? And I was like, realistically, anything less than 16 weeks, you're not growing, in my opinion. Like, because what you're growing in 16 weeks, okay, even if you went a pound a week, 16 pounds, how much of that's muscle? It just, there's not a lot, your first 8 to 10 pounds, like I say, is probably just glycogen replenishing, body fat, and just a bit of water and just body weight. No new muscles going in. Now, you will look more muscular because you'll be fuller, but you'll still you won't have as much body fat, around the muscles to blur it. But all the body fat will be stored within deep lying body fat, more than likely. So you can give the idea that you're bigger, but you're actually not, because again, you'll be like, well, I'm only, say you can deadlift 180 at your best, and then by the end of prep it's 140. Even if like 8 weeks post show you're only back up to 155, like, is that new muscle? And I know PB's on everything, but you're still 25 kilo less than your best ever. And you're telling me you've grown new muscle, but you lost 40 kilo of performance getting to prep stage. Like, no, it's just not a thing. So this is what I'm saying. Like, people going back to back, it rarely works. There's a couple of exceptions. Chris Palin's done it to great effect, but as we know, he can't put body fat on. He's pretty open about that. I think he's actually got a condition where he just struggled to put body fat on. Like that's why he gets so shredded. Nick Adams competes most years and does very well, but he's someone who won't get too heavy between seasons. He'll stay there or thereabouts. So these are the exceptions, though. Most people can't. Keefe was another one. He's done back-to-back years previously. However, he's taken a year off, and look how much better he looks. Like he's going to be even better. And in 2022, he was amazing. He looked fantastic. He landed in a lineup with Ben Lloyd, Dave Kay, and Nate Williams. Probably the hardest British lineup you could ever ask to be on, bodybuilding wise. But he still looked amazing. And he was probably the biggest on stage, realistically, in terms of weight and size, I'd argue. Maybe Dave might be the same size in terms of body weight. But he looks even better. He's took a full year off. And I think that's his first full year off ever, if not for several years. And look how much better he looks. This is what I'm saying. I don't think people realise until we actually do it when they're like, oh, fuck, like, that wasn't new muscle. I just put weight on. So this is what I'm saying. I don't think people should do back-to-back because how long are you recovering? If you got shredded, I don't know about you, I felt really, really fully recovered probably by the February. I felt good from like December onwards in terms of like, I don't feel like I'm going to die anytime soon. My sleep's decent. I was just starting to enjoy my training, but it weren't clicking still because obviously I wasn't at the body weight to be really good for performance. But I wasn't like hanging out of my arse for food. I wasn't like food focused. I didn't want to binge over time. You know, I wasn't starving. But certainly, mate, I had some episodes like certainly in November, maybe a couple even in December, where I remember one I just walked to the shops like probably a mile away to get some dog food. I went fully hypo, like literally dripping. I got back and I could wring my shirt out. Bearing in mind, this was like end of November, so it was like 1 degree outside. I had a winter coat on, a jumper, and a t-shirt. I could wring my t-shirt out when I got home because it was a grey t-shirt. Because I remember I walked in and Jem was like, "What the fuck's happened to you?" Because my t-shirt was soaking. I'd sweated that much, and I was like, I had to go to. I walked past the shop and just got something sugary. I don't know what happened. I texted Nave Styles, obviously he knows all about that, and I was like, "What the fuck?" He just said, "Oh mate, you just had a massive hyper attack." Like, yeah, like you're just still so sensitive to food, and your body is still recovering. And that was like 6 weeks post show. So I don't know about you, Luke, but I didn't feel fully amazing again until February. Well, if someone told me in February, "Oh yeah, you start prep next month," I'd have been like, "Get out of my face before I break your fucking jaw."
Yeah, I mean, like even his body weight's kind of going up. Like you training isn't quite right. Like things around your joints and stuff. You don't feel. Everyone's set point is going to be different, especially the individuals that are used to staying leaner like year round. But for most of us, like 12, 16 weeks until you're feeling, say, somewhat normal. Like, yes, you might feel normal in some certain parts and so on there, but like for things to get back to what there was like kind of like pre-contest prep, yeah, you're going to be a way off from that. So, and I know, yes, it's the individuals that like want to mention like Dirk Emmerich this year. I think he's going like he won the lightweight title. He's going back to back. He wants to see if it's like it's possible. He's like no one else really does it. He's won that title anyway. He's going to go see like what differences you can make within a year. And it's like if you're at that top level anyway, like why not try it if you're up there? But he's also an individual, just like Chris Palin. Doesn't get much heavy. Doesn't get very heavy. If anything, I'm guessing it's about 6 to 8 kilos above his actual stage weight, if that.
I think that's generous, to be fair.
Yeah, probably not even that, but he just holds it very, very well as well. So yeah, he's probably got like 15 pounds or something to come off. So because of that, he's in a good position to start prepping. For some, it may be way leaner to actually start a contest prepping, but then it should give him more time to actually grow than in comparison to like most individuals. And I'm sure because he's that top level kind of athlete, he will still make improvements. There's no doubt about it. But could he make more improvements if he took another year off? Probably. There is the kind of like you look at it from the other side, and it's like if you've taken, say, a 2 year off season, but they know they've got that amount of time, they're not kind of hyper focusing on making as much progress as possible within that time. But if they are and they've got that mapped out and they're right, 2 year off season, have got this amount of time to improve, every session, pretty much every session is a chance to improve on there. Like, yes, you've got your recovery time and so, but doing it year to year, you're just limiting your progress. And you're also, as you mentioned earlier, Finn, as putting that whether it's that 10, 15 pounds, 20 pounds on from there, the vast majority is just kind of gaining like that body fat back for the first couple of weeks. So you could even be at a position where you're actually your actual stage weight is less, but you've actually got less muscle mass than you did the year prior, just because you haven't allowed yourself to recover. I know there is some freaks out there that can recover very, very quickly. But the vast majority, it's simply not enough time for this sport. And it's bodybuilding at the end of the day. We have to build year on year. We can't just come back in year after year and expect improvements if we've not spent enough time in a surplus. Like I say, if you look from a 12-month standpoint, you want to spend at least 8 months of that in a surplus if you're looking to grow. So can you do a contest prep that's going to be close to 6 months, like back to doing it the year before and improve? It's going to be very, very slim. So yeah, there is a few out there. I know we might get mentioned and tagged about it, but most of us, we are not going to be able to do so from there. But yeah, pretty good one to wrap up on then. Do you reckon, Finn, or got another to wrap us up on?
Yeah. I just want to quickly point out what you're saying about Dirk. I'm sure when he was on Eric Helms' podcast, I'm sure he said either it's the same thing Chris has got, or he actually has a condition where he just can't get fat. Like he's tried it before. He's tried to push his body weight up, and he just gets to a point where his body's like, no, that didn't happen. Because he was saying he used to do parkour when he was a kid.
I remember, yeah.
And he was like 14, and he said he had striated glutes doing parkour, and he was like, I don't know why, like I just can't put fat on. So some people, again, this is where genetics come into it. So yeah, that's just the thing about Dirk. So don't compare to him. But yeah, I agree. I think good place to finish there. Bit of a brief one today, but we had to film early because Luke's away, and we're both busy, obviously, midweek with our coaching online and in person. So a quick one, guys, but we just wanted to make sure we had this kind of as a still keeping consistent with a weekly episode. And there'll be a lot of take-homes from this episode in terms of, are you ready? I think we've covered everything. We've covered your sleep, we've covered your routine, we've covered your training, definitely covered, where you should be in terms of your level of muscularity, and are you just actually ready to compete? And it's certainly something, we'll touch on more and more as this podcast, evolves and becomes its own thing in terms of what the topics we're going to go down and things like that. So in future episodes, we won't announce anything yet, but we will be looking to get some guests on for various reasons. And, also we're looking, in the future, overall winners, title winners, we'd like to get them on and get the people to know them. Again, we're not going to look at people who are just popular on Instagram. If you win a show, we want you on. Like, I don't care if you don't have even an Instagram account. Like, if you won the show, we'll somehow find you anyway. And we want to hear, how you did it, how's your training, the things you do. That's what we want, because that's what I like to listen to. That's what Lou wants to hear. So we thought, let's give that kind of platform. And it does exist in other podcasts, but on the whole, we want to make sure that we are, being fair and unbiased to everybody. So, yeah, I think we've wrapped up pretty much all. That's all the questions I've got anyway.
Yeah, the only other I've got is kind of like in regards to like how to know whether you're in the right category or not. But I think that is like a good subsection we can kind of lead to in future episodes. To be fair, kind of like covering the category.
I think that could be a future episode.
That's it. Yeah. So I thought I'd keep that one for an episode itself, covering the categories. And then also knowing having enough muscle match for each category. We all know that's different from there. But yeah, I'll not go over that too much. Otherwise, we'll be rambling on. So yeah, thanks for you all for listening. Appreciate all the likes, tags, shares. Please like, comment, subscribe. And yeah, stay tuned for the next one, guys. That's us over and out. Peace.